something like this. I'm taking one application with a name called REST API. Okay, guys. Now, next up, Lombok web dependency. Okay, I'm not taking anything else. I'm taking Lombok and web. Am I taking Jackson dependency? No. Click on next, click on finish. Okay, here I have customer class. Let me take that. Let me take that customer class. My project, I want to show you that we no need to write this logic in the Spring Boot. We no need to write that logic in the Spring Boot. Okay, there is a mistake, man. 3.0 it used. Yeah. File, new, starter project, REST API. Next, 2.7.11. Lombok and web. Next, finish. We no need to write the Jackson logic directly, but we need to have the idea how Java is converting to JSON, JSON is converting to Java. Okay, go to this form.xml, check it. What dependency I added? Web. Next one is Lombok. That's it. Go to here, Maven dependencies. Can you see here? Dependencies are available or not available? What dependency available? Jackson data bind. Manually, I added same dependency in my previous project. But when I'm creating the boot application, do I need to add that or I no need to add that? No need to add that. Now, here in this project, I'm going to copy one class called customer.java. I'm using one class with a name called customer.java. Now, let me create one REST controller, new class. I'm creating customer REST controller. We don't know what is REST controller. Just to see how it is going to behave. I'm creating REST controller and I'm writing one method, public customer get customer. Public customer get customer. What is my method return type? What is my method return type? Customer. Okay. Take this class object and return that object. Take that object and return that object. I want to map it to get request, get mapping slash. I'm not giving any URL pattern. What is happening in my method, guys? I'm creating the object, I'm setting the data, and I'm returning the object. Now, do I have any logic here to convert object to JSON? Do I have any logic to convert the object to JSON? No. I have taken one REST controller method. In that method, I am returning customer object. This class is a REST controller. What is the return type of the method? Object. Controller plus response body equal to REST controller. Is it going to return the view page or it is going to return the customer object? Customer object. Run this application, run as boot application. Run as boot application console, clear that. Now go to browser, localhost colon 8080. Localhost colon 8080. What is the response I'm getting? What is the response I'm getting? JSON data. What my method is returning? What my method is returning? Object. But what is the response I'm getting? JSON data. That means in the Spring Boot, do I need to write the logic to convert object to JSON? No. That will be taken care by Spring Boot. Why Boot is taking care of that? Because that is everybody's requirement. Everybody developing REST APIs by using Spring Boot. When we are developing the REST APIs, converting Java to JSON, JSON to Java is a very common requirement. Converting Java to JSON, JSON to Java is very common requirement. So you no need to write the logic. Now, internally, Spring Boot is executing these two lines of code. Internally, Spring Boot is executing object mapper, taking our customer object, converting to JSON, sending the JSON as a response. Are you guys clear? Perfect. Now, just see these classes. In the Spring Boot, you no need to write it, but normally you should have the idea how Java converted to JSON. Look at this code. No, directly it will come as a response. First I am setting the data for address object. Then I am setting the data for customer object. Then I am converting the customer object to JSON. These are the 2 lines of code I am writing. Look at the 2 lines of code. Object mapper is equal to new object mapper. Mapper dot write value is equal to new file of customer dot JSON. Now, so this is converting Java object to JSON. Converting Java object to JSON. In the Spring Boot, that is internal logic. We no need to write it. Yeah. Now see how I am converting JSON to Java. Here, converting JSON to Java. Converting JSON to Java object. That's it. Converting Java to JSON and JSON to Java. All right, good. Any questions on JSON, guys? Anybody having any questions on JSON? What we have done to work with the JSON, we created one normal Maven project as a quick start project. We added Lombok dependency and Jackson data bind dependency. Then we created binding class. One is address class, another one is a customer class. Then we created converter classes, Java to JSON conversion and JSON to Java conversion. Next one, JSON API. What is the JSON API? Another company provided one API, that is Google. So in that we have a predefined class called JSON. JSON dot to JSON, JSON dot from JSON. All right, fine. Next one, XML and JAX-B. XML and JAX-B. All right. By guys, XML data, earlier it was famous, now it is outdated in the market. But just we need to have the overview. What is XML? How Java object will be converted to XML? XML will be converted to Java object. Nowadays in the REST APIs, people are not using the XML. Earlier, SOAP Web Services was famous. At that time, XML was famous. But today, REST API is famous. REST API using JSON data. Now let us see XML. XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. XML is interoperable. XML is interoperable. What is the meaning of interoperable? It is platform independent and language independent. XML will represent data in element format. Okay, so this is called as one element ID 101. Close the ID. Syntax. XML will represent the data in the element format. Element is the combination of start tag and end tag. So this is called start tag and this is called end tag. Every element is combination of start tag and end tag. Every element is combination of start tag and end tag. Whenever we have a element, it's mandatory that it should have a start tag and end tag. That is called one element. Suppose if you don't write the end tag, that is invalid. That is invalid. So open tag and closure tag is mandatory. In the XML, we will write the data by using simple elements and compound elements. In the XML, we have two types of elements. In XML, we have two types of elements. First one is simple element and second one is compound element. First one is simple element, second one is compound element. XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. XML is interoperable. XML will represent data in element format. ID is available like this. Every element is a combination of start tag and end tag. In the XML, we have two types of elements. One is called simple element, second one is called compound element. Now let us see here. Person is available. Person open tag, person closed tag. Inside the person, ID available 101. And I have a name for the person, Sam Smith. Name is closed. Okay. And he is having address. Address open tag and address closed tag. Inside the address, city is available. Something like this. City available and state also available. Like this, we are going to represent the data in the XML format. Guys, see here, person, inside the person, ID, name, address. Inside the address, city and state. Now here, this XML is the combination of simple element and compound element. Simple elements means the elements which contains the data directly. ID is a simple element because ID is having the data directly. ID 101. That means it is a simple element. Name Smith. That is also having the data directly. So it is called as simple element. What about the person? Compound element. Person is having the child element. Address is having the child element. If an element contains data directly like this ID, name, city, state, those elements are called as simple elements. If any element contains a child element, that element is called as compound element. So in the here, if we see in the JSON file also, same thing is available. In the JSON file also, same thing. It is having the direct data and it is having the child elements, right? Address is having childs. Now, these are normal elements. Address having the childs. So, address is a compound. Similarly, here in the person, person is a compound element because person is having child elements. Inside the person, ID available, name available. They are simple. City available, state available. They are simple. But person is a compound element. Address is a compound element. Element which contains data directly. Elements which contains data directly are called as simple elements. The elements which contains data directly are called as simple elements. Example, ID, name, city, something like this. ID, name. These are called as simple elements. City, state also called as simple elements. City and state are called as simple elements. What is a compound element? Elements which contains child elements are called as compound elements. Elements which contains child elements are called as compound elements. What are those compound elements? First one is person and next one is address. First one is a person and the next one is address. They are called as compound elements. Are you clear? Perfect. Now here we are having requirement. I have the data in the Java object. I have the data in the Java object. I want to convert that Java object data to XML file. XML data. Java object should be converted to XML data. To convert Java object to XML, XML data to Java object, we have a mediator. That mediator is called JAX-B. Who is the mediator between Java and XML? That is JAX-B. JAX-B is one API. JAX-B stands for Java Architecture for XML Binding. I want to bind my Java object data to XML file, XML data to Java object. So to convert Java to XML, XML to Java, we need to go for one API called JAX-B API. The process of converting Java object to XML is called as marshalling. Okay, and the process of converting XML to Java is called as unmarshalling. Okay, now by using this JAX-B, I want to perform marshalling and unmarshalling. What is the meaning of marshalling? Converting from Java to XML is called as marshalling. What is unmarshalling? XML data to Java object is called as unmarshalling. Okay, fine guys. So JAX-B API. JAX-B API. JAX-B stands for Java Architecture for XML Binding. JAX-B API. JAX-B stands for Java Architecture for XML Binding. Java Architecture for XML Binding. Using JAX-B API, we can convert XML data to Java object and vice versa. Java to XML, XML to Java. So that is called as marshalling. What is a marshalling and what is a unmarshalling? Come on guys. What is a marshalling and what is unmarshalling? Marshalling is converting Java object to XML. Unmarshalling, converting XML to Java object. Okay, note, in order to convert Java to XML, XML to Java, we need to create binding class. Okay, in the JSON also, we have taken one customer class. Customer class data I converted to JSON. JSON data converted to customer class. So similarly, when we want to work with JAX-B API, Java classes should be available. JAX-B stands for Java Architecture for XML Binding. What is the purpose of using this JAX-B API? Using JAX-B API, we can convert XML data to Java object and vice versa. Here, we are going to learn what is marshalling and what is unmarshalling. Can you tell me what is marshalling? What is marshalling? Converting Java object to XML is called as marshalling. What is unmarshalling? Converting XML data to Java object is called unmarshalling. And note, to perform marshalling or unmarshalling, we need to create binding class first. To perform marshalling or unmarshalling, we need to create binding class. Here, in this scenario, binding class means the class which will represent the XML structure. Okay. So what tags should be available in the XML? That the structure should be represented by our Java class. Then only we can convert Java object to XML, XML to Java object. Okay. And another important point that we need to remember, up to JDK 1.8 version, JAX-B is part of JDK. Up to 1.8 version, JAX-B is part of JDK. But slowly, the demand is reduced for the XML. Sun Microsystem removed JAX-B from, Oracle people removed the JAX-B from Java 1.9 version. If you are using Java 1.8 version, directly you can work with the JAX-B, no need of any dependency. But if you are using Java 9 or above versions, we need to add JAX-B dependency manually. So up to 1.8, you no need to do anything. Directly in the Java, you can use the JAX-B classes. But from Java 1.9 onwards, JAX-B is not part of JDK. If you want JAX-B, you need to add that manually. You need to add the dependency manually. Up to JDK 1.8 version, JAX-B is part of JDK itself. But from Java 1.9 version, it is not part of JDK. So to use JAX-B, we need to add the dependency in the pom.xml from 1.9 version. If we want to work with JAX-B API from Java 1.9 version, then we have to add dependency in pom.xml file. Now you imagine why Oracle people removed JAX-B. What is the reason? Demand is not there. When the demand is not there, why to keep that in the JDK? Why to make our JDK heavyweight? Unnecessary classes, why should we keep in the JDK? This is not required. People are not using XML nowadays. People are going for JSON. JSON is lightweight than XML. That's why Oracle people realized that JAX-B does not have any demand. Remove this from the JDK. If anybody want it, they will manually add that as a dependency. Right. Now read this. What is XML? What is XML, guys? XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. XML is interoperable. XML will represent data in element format. Like this, elements will be available. Every element is a combination of start tag and end tag. In XML, we have two types of elements. What are those? One is a simple element, another one is compound element. What is the difference between simple element and compound element? Come on. Right. Element which contains data directly, those elements are called as simple elements. Elements which contains the child elements are called as compound elements. What is the JAX-B API? Come on. JAX-B stands for Java Architecture for XML Binding. Using this JAX-B API, we can convert XML data to Java and Java to XML. Those are called as marshalling and unmarshalling. What is the marshalling? Come on. Converting Java object to XML is called as marshalling. What is unmarshalling? Converting XML data to Java object is called as unmarshalling. If we want to perform marshalling or unmarshalling, then what is required? Binding. What is the meaning of binding here? Lizard. In the Spring Web MVC, binding means form binding object. In the JAX-B, binding means class represents XML structure. The Java class which is representing the structure of the XML, that is called as binding class. Okay. Now, I am not using 1.8 in my system. Can I work with JAXB directly? No. Up to 1.8 version, it is part of JDK. But from 1.9 version, it is not part of JDK. If you want to work with JAXB from 1.9, then what we need to do? We need to add that as a dependency in the pom.xml file. Okay, fine guys. Now see, in the Google, you can take that help also. JAXB API example. JAXB API example. Okay. JAXB Java 9, 10, 11 and beyond. Okay. JAXB dependency. What is the dependency we need to add now? Eclipse Link Mocky, they have that dependency. Jakarta XML binding dependency is available. Jakarta XML binding dependency is available. Hello World example they have given. Hello World example they have given. JAXB marshaller, set property, JAXB context, XML conversion, XML to Java, Java to XML conversion. They have given several examples here. All right. Now, JAXB tutorial is available. XML to Java, Java to XML by using JAXB dependency. We don't need all these features. Converting XML to Java, Java to XML. So they are not using any dependency. What is the meaning of that? This tutorial they prepared up to Java 1.8 version, guide to JAXB. Here you can see introduction to JAXB. JAXB annotations are available. Marshalling, converting that, unmarshalling, converting to XML. Complex data types they have given here. Now, JAXB to Maven plugin. Maven plugin also available. Directly it will convert the JAXB Java to XML, XML to Java. The plugin also can be configured. Right. Schemas also available now. So let me go for JAXB dependency in the pom.xml. First, let me create my Maven project. File, new, other, Maven project. Simple project I want to create. 23 JAXB application. Group ID and artifact ID, finish. So project got created. I need to add the Lombok dependency. Let me take the dependency. Copying that. I'm adding Lombok dependency. Along with the Lombok, what dependency is required now? JAXB dependency required. Close this project. Okay. Yes, I have created one JAXB application. I have added Lombok. Along with the Lombok, I need to add JAXB dependency. Let me go for JAXB dependency. Where we can get that? MVN repository. Let me go for JAXB. REST easy, JAX WS, JAXB API. JAXB API is available. Okay. Let me take this dependency, JAXB API. Right. I have added JAXB API dependency. Java x.xml.bind, JAXB API version I have configured. Perfect. Now let me take our customer class we have created previously. Customer class available. I want to take that same customer. Or else do one thing. Perfect. I have a class called customer. Now I want to convert my customer object to XML. Converting the customer to XML is called as marshalling. Let us do that. Marshall demo. Let me create a package, new class, Marshall demo. Right. Go to our main method, create the customer object and set the data. Customer C is equal to new customer. Customer dot set ID, some value. Okay, first let me check with one value, XML is creating or not. So here we need to go for Jaxb context dot new instance of customer dot class. With the customer class, I want to create one Jaxb context. By using that Jaxb context, I want to convert Java to XML. Now let me take it. I got the context object. Once we got the context dot create marshaller, which will give me marshaller object. Marshaller dot marshal object comma file. What is my object? Customer. My object is a customer, new file. I want to go for customer.xml. Now, system.out.println XML created. System.out.println XML created. See the logic here. I have created my project. In the project pom.xml, I have added Lombok dependency and I have added Jaxb dependency. Lombok and Jaxb dependencies are added. And I have created one binding class. Then I have taken one Java class that is called Marshall demo. Customer C is equal to new customer. For the customer object, we can set the data. C.set ID, C.set name. Okay, set ID, set name, and C.set email ID, any value, john.@gmail.com, and we will get C.set phone number, some value. Okay, that is long value. Now, after creating the customer object, I'm creating Jaxb context object. Once we create the Jaxb context, using that context, we are creating marshaller. Context dot create marshaller. Once we got the marshaller object, marshaller dot marshal. Which object you want to marshal? Customer object. Where you want to keep the data? In the customer dot XML. What is the meaning of marshalling? Converting Java object to XML is called as marshalling. Now, it will give an exception. Let's check that. Run as Java application. Working or not working? It is not working. It is saying that class not found exception. It is expecting one class called com.xml.b2.contextFactory. Implementation of Jaxb API has not been found in the module path or class path. Boss, you have added Jaxb API, but I am unable to find that in the class path. Now, copy the exception, go to browser, right. Stack Overflow, they will tell some solution. What they are telling? Along with the Jaxb API, we need to add a dependency called Jaxb implementation also. Copy this. Go to pom.xml. Jaxb API I have added. Now for the Jaxb, I have added IMPL also. Now let's try. Run as a Java application. It is saying that one more class is not found. What is that class? com.sun.istack.pool. Now, istack.pool. Jaxb core, okay. Jaxb runtime. Let me add all these dependencies, guys. Copy this dependency. JAXB API IMPL core and Java assist. Total 4 dependencies I have added. One is JAXB core, JAXB API, JAXB IMPL and Java assist. Let us try. Run as Java application. This time different exception is available. Yeah, this is known issue. Now it is saying that unable to marshal in.ashok.id.customer element because it is missing one annotation called XML root element. Whenever we are converting Java object to XML, what should be the root element of the XML? There should be one root element in the XML. So now I want to represent my class as a root element. Now I will specify XML root element. When you are going for Jackson, these annotations are not required. But when we are going for XML, our Java class should represent structure of the XML. To represent the structure of the XML, we need to specify one annotation called XML root element. Now go here, run as Java application. With this, we are able to create the XML. Go to the project, refresh that. Now you can see customer.xml created, source available, Control Shift F. Now can you see the Java data, whatever the customer object available, are we able to convert customer object to customer XML? Yes, we are able to convert the customer object to customer XML. So what operation we have done? We have done marshalling. Remember, in our pom.xml, we have added 4 dependencies for that. One is a JAXB core dependency, JAXB API, JAXB IMPL, and Java assist. Then I created one binding class. For this binding class, what is required? XML root element is required. That is mandatory, guys. Then go for Marshall demo. Here I'm creating object for the customer. This object I want to convert into XML. For that I'm going for JAXB context dot new instance. I got the context object, context dot create marshaller. With this I got the marshaller object. Marshaller dot marshal. What is the meaning of marshaller dot marshal? What is the meaning of marshaller dot marshal? Whatever the Java object available, I want to convert into my XML. So customer XML created, this XML contain the data. How many compound elements available? How many simple elements available? There is only one compound element is available, that is called customer. Name, ID, email, phone number, those are simple element. What is the difference between simple element and compound element? The element which contains the data, that is called simple. The element which contains the child, that is called compound. Now, I want to go for unmarshal. What is the meaning of unmarshal? Now I have XML. I want to convert the XML data to Java object. Okay. Marshal demo completed. Now let us go for unmarshal demo. New class. Unmarshal demo. Right. Main method. I already have my XML file. Customer.xml. File F is equal to new file. Okay. What is our file name? Customer.xml. In order to convert the XML to Java, I need JAXB context. Let me create JAXB context. JAXB context dot new instance of customer.class. Okay. Store that into context object exception. context object. Perfect. Right now I want to perform unmarshalling. To perform the unmarshalling, let us get the unmarshaller object. How to get the unmarshaller object? Context dot create unmarshal. Unmarshaller. Unmarshaller dot unmarshal. Unmarshaller dot unmarshal. That is expecting my file object. What is the return type? Object. Let me convert that object into customer. Typecasting. Customer to customer of object. I'm doing conversion. Superclass object I'm getting. I'm converting into subclass object. System.out.println of customer. So this is the logic which is used to convert XML to Java. That is called unmarshalling. To perform the unmarshalling, there is a class called unmarshaller. To perform the marshalling, there is a class called marshaller. Unmarshaller and marshaller available. Let me go for unmarshaller. Run as Java application. Am I able to get the Java object? Yes. XML to Java, we are able to perform. So let me give the steps here. Working with JAXB API. If you understand this Jackson API and JAXB API, tomorrow REST API development will become easy. In the REST API, everything will be represented in the form of XML or JSON. So tomorrow when you send the request, output will come, response will come in the JSON format, or response will come in the XML format. Sir, your method returning object, but how you are getting response as a XML or JSON? Internally, our Spring Boot will use JAXB API and Jackson API. Able to follow me? Right. Working with the JAXB API, first one, create Maven Quick Start project. Create Maven Quick Start project. Then add below dependencies. So many dependencies are available, guys. Lombok and JAXB. Okay, several dependencies I have added. After adding the dependencies, what is the next step? What is the next step? Create binding class. What is the binding class? Represent XML structure. Represent XML structure. Right. I'm taking one simple class customer. If you remove this annotation, it will not work. If you remove the annotation, it will not work. That is mandatory. XML root element. Right. Then create marshaller and unmarshaller classes. First one is Marshal demo. And the second one is unmarshaller demo. Fine. Marshal demo and unmarshal demo. Perfect. Now, practice at least one example by using Jackson and JAXB so that you will understand how they are working internally. Tomorrow, when we are going to develop the REST API, you will get understanding easily how Java object converted to XML, how Java object converted to JSON. Perfect. Now, see this, guys. If you go for now RESTful service architecture, you should understand consumer application will be available and provider application will be available. Assume that I am a customer for MakeMyTrip. I will log in into MakeMyTrip. I will enter my journey data. MakeMyTrip will capture my data. MakeMyTrip will convert into JSON. will send the request to IRCTC with the JSON data. IRCTC will take that JSON, will convert into object, will execute the logic, and will send the response again in the form of JSON. So consumer provider always will communicate with the XML data or JSON data. If they are using XML or JSON, they developed by using which technology, that is not important. They can be used Java or .NET, Python, PHP, whatever it may be. So consumer and provider no need to be developed by using same technology. Consumer will send the request to provider with the JSON data. Provider will execute the logic. Provider will send the response in the form of JSON to the consumer. Consumer provider both can be developed by using different technologies, but the data will be exchanged in the form of XML or JSON format. Are you guys clear? Any questions on this? So how to work with XML data in the Java? JAX-B API. By using JAX-B API, we can convert XML to Java, Java to XML. Converting Java to XML is called as marshalling. XML to Java is called as unmarshalling. Similarly, here we are using one API called JAX-B API. Up to 1.8, it is part of the JDK, but from 1.9, manually we need to add it. Now, Jackson, this is a third-party API. If you want to convert Java to JSON, JSON to Java, we need to go for Jackson API. Java to JSON, JSON to Java, write value and read value methods available. There is another API called JSON API that is provided by Google. So what is the purpose of JSON API? That also used to convert Java to JSON, JSON to Java. What methods available? Two JSON method and from JSON methods are available in the JSON API. Good. So with this, we are done with prerequisites to develop our RESTful services. We are done with the prerequisites to develop our RESTful services. Now, do you know what is a distributed application? Yeah. What is a distributed application? If one application communicating with the another application, that is called distributed application. What are the distributed technologies are available? Corba, RMI, EJB, SOAP web services. The latest one is the RESTful services. Okay. Now, coming to the REST architecture, provider and consumer. What is the purpose of a provider? Who is a provider? The application which is providing the services to other application, that is called provider. What is a consumer? The application which is accessing the services from other applications, that is called consumer. Now, HTTP protocol. What methods are available here? Get, post, put, to delete. When to go for put method? When to go for put method? If you want to update some data, then put method. When to go for post method? To insert the record. Get method, get the data. Delete method, delete the record. What is 400 status code? Client error. 500 server error. 200 success. Okay. What is the payload? What is the payload? The data that we are sending in the request body or response body is called as a payload. Okay. Now, next we discussed about XML and JAX-B API. So XML will represent in the tag format. Element will be available. To convert XML to Java, Java to XML, we are going to deal with JAX-B API. What is unmarshalling? Converting XML to Java is called unmarshalling. What is the marshalling? Java to XML is called marshalling. Okay. Next one, JSON. What is a JSON? JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. JSON will represent the data in the form of key and value pair. So in the Java, Do we have direct support to deal with JSON? No. Either you need to go for Jackson API or JSON API. In the Jackson API, which class we are using to convert Java to JSON? Object mapper. What methods available? Write value and read value methods are available to do that conversion. In the Spring Boot REST API, do I need to convert or it will taken care by Spring Boot? It will taken care by Spring Boot in order to convert Java to JSON and JSON to Java. Yes, fine guys, good. So with this, we understood the prerequisites to start our REST API development. So in the Monday session, we are going to see how to develop a provider. I mean to say how to develop one REST API. Once provider development completed, how to test it, how to generate the documentation, then how to develop consumer, then how to integrate one application with another application, how to handle exceptions. These things we are going to discuss in the next week. Provider development, consumer development, Postman, Swagger, REST template, web client, exception handling. We are going to discuss them. Yep. Any questions, anyone? You got 2 days time, 2 days holidays. What is the plan? Seriously. Try to complete the project task and try to practice XML example and JAXB example before coming to Monday class. Thank you guys. We'll see you on Monday.